Good morning, YouTube channel. This is Shannon with Southern Gardening, and it just dawned on me that I haven't done a gardening video. The one I did at early spring had no auditory on it, so I have not had a chance to redo it. So here we are in July, and I thought it's about time that we do a little walk around and let you see the good, the bad, and the ugly of my gardens and what's going on here on our 1 acre property, and just give you an update. So right here we're looking at this garden. It was a flower garden that I turned into a strawberry garden, and since the strawberries only produce in early spring to early summer, and then they just kind of have their foliage, I decided to go ahead and plant marigolds. And of course this is around our back porch, so the marigolds also not only help fill in and put some color around our back porch, but it also helps keep the mosquitoes down. And as you can see, I planted these marigolds, and they're pretty much marigold bushes. I don't know how to grow them smaller. I'm guessing this is normal. As you can see, they have lots of blooms on them, and they're pretty good size. And they go down, all the way down, and then of course it goes around. And as you can see, it looks like there's a little lizard right there on the rail. Let me see if I can zoom in. Doing a little mating ritual. And we have tons of lizards. Oh, sorry about the jerking there. We have tons of lizards around here, and they help keep the bug population down. And as we're watching him, he's watching us, looks like. Alright, so moving on. Let me see if I can do, nope, this tripod don't want to let me do this smoothly. But as you can see, here's my marigolds, and they're doing pretty good. I love that dark orange and orange color combination that's grown there. And then of course they keep going. My strawberry plants don't look so healthy right now because it has been so hot. We've been under a heat advisory lately. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you. And they're pretty good size. And of course they go around here. Oh, I just kicked the tripod. Sorry about that. Okay, and this is the walkway we've been working on. And then over here, the first plant, let's see, that one right there is a citronella, and I have it in a pot. I did have a 2-year-old citronella planted in the dirt there, and copper dug it up this winter, and we could not find the roots to replant. So I had to get another one. In the red bucket there, next to it, right there, is a sweet potato vine. And it seems to pout a lot when it's not happy. And I probably need to water it a little more today. Then I transplanted, I cleaned this area up. I had a couple big tomatillo bushes up here, but they were not producing. It was just all foliage. So I went ahead and ripped those up, and I fed those to the chickens. And then I transplanted, the first one on the left is a jalapeno, and I transplanted that out of my garden buckets, and I'll show you those here in a minute. The next two are bell peppers, and I figured since they like heat, and this side gets the morning sun, I would go ahead and transplant them into this garden. And that way it's right here off the back porch. If I need some for the kitchen, cooking and what have you, I can just come right out the door and grab some off the vine. And then I have some mint growing there, a tomato plant, and then as you can see I have my elephant ears, and there's a rain barrel hidden behind those elephant ears there. And we'll go ahead and move around the side of the building here. And there's my rain barrel. And never mind those two handles. That's we like to keep the dog poop picked up so we don't step in it and the big boys don't land in it playing. And that's some mint, and then I have some elephant ears growing there. And I have a hosta right there, and some more mint and some more elephant ears. And that does it for this garden. We'll go out by the greenhouse and I will show you my banana trees and my bird of paradise. Okay, slight change of plans. I decided I wanted to show you this shade tree that we planted a couple years ago, and the little garden ring that I have going around it. I know it looks like that we have a bunch of weeds growing up around it, but those are not weeds. I bought a package of Texas wildflowers and decided I'd go ahead and sprinkle some seeds in there. I had some Gerber daisies planted around there, and I planted some red lilies in there, and I have some strawberry plants planted in there from the vines of the strawberry plants that are trying to creep down into the yard. Cut those and then stuck those in there for a little bit of ground cover. But I decided I needed some more color, some more flowers. So I went ahead and sprinkled out some Texas wildflower mix, and apparently a lot of those look like wild weeds before they actually put on a bloom. So, and I've also got some loofahs planted over there, the vining things that you see going up the tree over here. Let me show you as we walk a little closer. You see the vine growing up that pole right there? Let's see here. Right there. And then up the tree right there. Those are actual loofah plants. And what they'll do is they'll go ahead and they'll vine and they'll put on loofahs up in Okay, so sorry about that, the phone rang. Never fails when you're in the middle of trying to do something, the phone rings or somebody wants your attention. But anyway, there is loofah growing up there. That hanging bottle there is to draw flies and catch them. We are in Texas, and the flies during the summertime this year have been really bad because we did not have a very cold winter this year, this past winter. And of course you see my little rain gauge there and my bird feeder. And then I have a little bird bath over here that's a frog, and you can't see him hardly because of all the flowers. But I put glass gems in there from the Dollar Tree, and I add water to it so that the butterflies and the bees have a place to get a drink without drowning when I do get out here in water. It did rain just the other day, and we're supposed to have scattered showers today, so I probably won't fill it up today. It'll probably be tomorrow if we do not get any rain today. So there's that tree ring, and I just love some of these blooms on these flowers. And then of course I put some little zinnia flowers down there. I tried to find some zinnias. Of course it was late in the season, and some of the nurseries that I went to were overpriced on them. So I didn't pick any up. I'll try to pick some up this next spring, or if I find them randomly on clearance in the stores, and get some of those planted. And it's getting close to time, since it is at the end of July, it's getting close to time to plant our fall garden, or start getting it ready to be planted, because I am currently in zone 8A, and so it's about time to get that started. Alright, so we will move on to the gardens around the greenhouse. Okay, so this is my greenhouse, and of course here's the shed, and there's Buddy and Copper. Around the shed I've planted some cannons, some elfin ears, some lilies on the right side, and then over here I've planted some War Texas wildflowers. Those are the weed looking things growing up there by the door, and I planted some cannas as well, and a few marigolds as well, trying to keep some of the bug population, the mosquitoes, down. And then of course there's my banana trees, and you see my elfin ears. The pink flowers that you can see in there, and we'll get a little closer here in just a minute, I believe that's where the bananas are coming out. I need to dig some of those banana trees up and plant them in a pot so that we can move them indoors when the temperatures start getting cold. Our growing season is not near as long as they need to be for the bananas to produce. They're just little bitty, 1-2 inches in size, and not fully forming banana leaves or bananas. So we'll get up a little closer. Hold on. Okay, so here's the pink flower that I was talking about, and as you can see on this pink flower, oh, and I just knocked a couple of those pieces off, but right here, and I'm hoping that you can see them, right here are the little beginnings of the bananas. And last year they only got a little bigger than this before we got our first frost, and so they didn't actually produce. And of course this flower is pretty. I mean, pretty special. And then of course the leaves are great. I pull some of the leaves off from time to time, and I just add them into my compost bin so that I have a little more greenery in there. Alright, so we're going to move on. Okay, so there's my elfin ears, and they're pretty good size. They're just not huge right here in this area, not as massive as my banana trees are, as you can tell. And then of course over here in this first blue pot to the right, that is a fig tree, and I planted some marigolds in that pot as well. And then next to that is an Adam, let's see, what is it? Can't read the tag from here. An Adam 2 elderberry. Adam's 2 elderberry. And I planted these in the pots because we will be relocating these and planting them permanently down on a property, the 30 acres that we're going to be moving to. So we wanted to have them in bigger pots and get them ready to move out to the property. This elderberry bush, I just pulled it out of the greenhouse. It wasn't doing so good, and it wasn't very happy in there. It wasn't growing near as much as the one that I transplanted and put out here in this blue bucket. So I put it out here to do a little bit of growing so that I can transplant it into a bigger bucket. And as you can see in the greenhouse, I have a few bigger buckets or pots to move them to. And back there in that corner, if you can see it, I've got some aloe vera plants growing. I had those planted in a garden around the front of the house, and once winter hit, it almost wiped them completely out. They were not happy being wet all the time or cold. So once I put them in these pots, and I don't water them about maybe once a month, if that, they became very happy and started producing pups. So they're happy where they're at. I'm fine with where they're at. So we'll just leave them. And then here's my greenhouse. I've got some shelves over here. I've got that shelf in the back with another shelf on top. And we'll be in the greenhouse more later while we're here on this property. And now I've got some ambrosia apples, and there was first 3 buckets to the left, or pots to the left. The next one is a butterfly bush, and it looks like I need to get in here and water because that doesn't look very happy. And then of course I've got my miniature rose bush there. And I've had that miniature rose bush for quite some time. And you hear the boys barking in the back. And then of course right here, that is the first avocado tree I've ever successfully grown. And I have it in a pot. And I have some Texas wildflowers planted with it and some mint. And of course there's the Texas wildflower growing out of the pot. And sorry about the jerking. This tripod does not rotate very smoothly. I don't know why. Maybe that'll help loosen it up. But it still has a little bit of jerky motion. Anyway, there's some pumpkin vine growing around it. And you'll see why here in a minute. This is a loquat tree that I have successfully grown from seed as well. And it will be going to our property as well. And it's got some mint in with it and some wildflowers as well. Sorry about the background noise. One of our neighbors is walking through down the road, and they go crazy because they see them. Alright, so here is my pumpkin garden. If I would have gotten out here sooner and got you guys to take a look at it, y'all might have been impressed. The leaves were huge, probably as big as those elephant ears that I planted in the background. We filled this box with some of the dirt from the drainage ditch that you see in the previous videos. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch those videos. They're very short, not much to them. It just talks about the drainage ditch and the rich soil. And we put that in some homemade compost in this box. And I planted about 4 pumpkin plants in here. They took off. They did great in the springtime. And now that the squash bugs are out and the vine borers are out, they have all but wiped out my pumpkin plants. Now we did get several pumpkins off of it. I think these are the sugar babies. I grew those so that I could have some make some homemade pumpkin puree, so that I have those to make some homemade pumpkin pies. And as you can see, there's still 1 pumpkin on the vine there. And some of the vines are still doing fairly decent. They haven't totally died out, but they are getting that powdery mildew look. And as you can see, some of the vines and the leaves are curled up. Like I said, I was going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly of my gardens. There is a tomato plant right there that is a volunteer tomato plant. I'm guessing it grew out of the compost. I did not plant any tomato plants out here this year, and I didn't plant any over in that corner the previous years. The previous years I planted them around the base of this crabapple tree that we have here, and just let them kind of lean on the tree so that I could support it with that. And this tube right here is so that we can water down deep to the roots of the trees when they start out, because like I said, here in Texas it gets very hot, and so it's easier to water deep water if we have the tubes for watering. And here's Maxie and Copper out here by my pumpkin patch. Hopper's just saying hi. Maxie decided to come out here and say good morning. Okay, moving on. This is our asparagus beds. And as you can see, they have turned into ferns. And there's not much we can do with them until they die back and turn yellowish brown, then we'll trim them back. But this garden box was built over a tree stump in hopes that the worms and other natural bugs and bacteria and stuff would help rot it out and serve us a purpose with growing some vegetables. And let me show you this over here. These are our elephant ears. We just planted over here this year. And of course my chickens love to hide behind them. They are on this side of the fence from their chicken yard. And as we go, I'm going to show you, they are massive elephant ears. I have never grown any elephant ears this huge. Now I don't know if you can tell how big this thing is, but I can't even, I'm using wide angle and I can't even get this thing in the screen. But this thing is huge. Let me just show you. You can hear the chickens in the background. Okay, let me show you. This elephant ear is huge. This is the size of my hand. And as you can tell, I'm standing next to it. And look how big this thing is. It's like prehistoric size. At least I think it is. They're massive. Here we go. Does this thing make my ears look big? Of course, these are just massive. These would be great for making stepping stones. As you can tell. And there's Copper. So you can see how huge they are in comparison to him as well. And see my dogs are barking again. That neighbor's walking by. And there's my ducks. We named the male ducks Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And we have 3 males, which are all the ones with the green heads, the mallards. And then we have the females, which are Daphne, Daffodil, and Dahlia. And we just got these guys this year. So they're not even a year old. And this is my chicken yard. And over there we have a rain catch water system. We catch the rain in the gutters off the roof, and we have it running through the downspout into that tote. And then we plumbed it into the chicken house with some nipples. As you can tell in our previous videos, the early videos showing the inside of the chicken coop, how it's plumbed. And of course we keep that little kiddie swimming pool there for extra water. And there's my main rooster, Hawkeye. And we have one more rooster that came out of this new batch of chicks, and his name is Ruger. And I don't see him out here right now. He may be hidden behind the elephant ears or in the coop eating. Good morning, Hawkeye. And of course Max wants to be on the camera again. Say hello, Maxie. He is a little long-haired Chihuahua. Okay. In this garden in front of the chicken yard, I decided since the chicken runoff comes into this area, I would try and plant some tomato plants here this year. I made the border with landscape timber. I mulched it. I did layering with cardboard and mulched it heavily. And as you can tell, the grass still decided to grow in there. So we keep it weeded down. I do have a lemon or lime tree in there, but the tomato plants have put off a lot of foliage and not a whole lot of tomatoes. So we're going to have to do something a little different this fall so that I can use it this spring and maybe get better results out of it. Like I said, I haven't gotten very many tomatoes out of this area. Now I'm going to swing you around, and this tree ring is one of the tree rings that I made. These tree rings, both of these tree rings are the tree rings I made using some scrap fence pickets and that, you know, that black plastic that you put around your garden beds and you're supposed to dig it in. Well, I decided I wasn't digging it in. So I took some of these fence pickets and I rolled out that black plastic, and I used a staple gun and I stapled those pickets to the black plastic. I laid the fence pickets down, put the black plastic garden trim down, and I used the staple gun and stapled those to it. Well, if you bump those with the lawnmower or kick them, they come loose because the staples don't hold really well. They're doing, for the most part, a great job. But if they come loose, they simply fall off. And so I just drilled a couple screws into there. And I've got to keep that in mind when I'm digging in there. If I get down too deep, that there's some screws poking through, because we don't have very short screws to go through the wood and the plastic. So. But I want you to see the size of those sunflowers there. I'm 6 foot tall, and these things are, granted the garden bed is probably about 6 inches taller, but these things are massive, and they have multiple heads on them, and they're taller than I am. Even if I was standing up in the garden bed next to them, they are taller than me. I don't remember the variety, but as you can see, they have beautiful heads on them. And I don't think I've ever seen a sunflower that puts off multiple heads like this. We've got that one. We've got this dark orange one, which I really love the coloring of it. We've got another yellow one back there in the background, and it's a little bit windy today, so hopefully I'm not picking up too much wind on this microphone. And then we've got another dark reddish one over there. And I hope it's not too bright out here to where you can actually see it. There's a dark red, and I am having to point the camera up for you guys to see these. Oh, they're probably a good 7 to 8 feet tall. And then of course I've got, let me see if I can find her. This is supposed to be, these flowers here are supposed to be chocolate cosmos. And I don't believe they're chocolate cosmos. They may be cosmos, but they're not chocolate cosmos, because chocolate cosmos are supposed to have a chocolate scent when you get close to them and be more brownish in color. So I think those are just wildflowers. And of course, right in the middle, there's Maxie again. He's following me around the yard. Right in the middle of the sunflowers, I have a mulberry tree that I planted. I needed a tree there. One of our peach trees had died. Boars got it, so I decided to pull it up. And I had a mulberry tree in a pot that I had grown. I ordered a small sapling, and I got it live in the mail, and I planted it in a pot, and I grew that in a pot for a couple years and decided to transplant it into this garden area. And I just planted it this year. It wasn't very big, and it has taken off well in this area. So there's that. And I have a couple cannons over here, and I'm really not sure what else I planted over here. Alright, so we're going to swing around to this tree ring. This first tree ring, I have a tree in the middle of it that is actually a volunteer tree. It grew up in one of the garden beds around the house. I'm guessing a squirrel planted it or something. And I figured, well, let's see what it is. And I planted it in this tree ring, and it has really taken off. Okay, sorry about that, my battery died. So last we were talking about was this tree ring right here, and we were talking how I did the tree ring, and this one has a volunteer tree in it that the squirrels planted in my flower beds. Also planted cannas around it, and as you can see right here on the left hand side of the garden box, or the tree ring, is a dahlia. I planted this dahlia. I wanted some nice looking dahlias, and I planted this dahlia, and it's done okay. Hopefully it'll do better in its second year, but it's not as nice as I thought it would be. Let me tilt the camera down here. And as you can see, looks like the blooms are too heavy for the stems. And I don't know why that is. If you know why, shoot me a message. Let me know what I can add to my soil, my compost, to help this dahlia out. Maybe I just need to prune her back, and maybe the new blooms will be even stronger. So that's that. And we're going to go ahead and go over here. And that is the entryway to my vegetable garden. So we're going to go in there. And on the left, this is my compost bin. I built this with pallets and chicken wire. I watched a couple of the YouTube channels, and this is how they did it, or something similar to it. And so I took their information and their knowledge, and I combined it and come up with my own thoughts. The bin closest to us, it is a 2-bin system. The bin closest to us is the bin that is finishing up. Originally I didn't think I was going to have enough, but with the garden we have enough to do a two bin system. So we start out in this bin and we start loading it up, and as it fills up and starts breaking down, we go ahead and turn it and put it over in this compost bin, so that I can use this when it starts breaking down a couple months later, even further, into the garden boxes. Now on the fence line right here, you see a loofah, and I planted that there, giving it the whole access to the chain link fence, so maybe it'll do better than climbing up a tree as we had previously. Okay, and let's see here. Right here is an ambrosia apple tree that we grew from seed, and I don't know if you can barely see it, but there are some apples in there, and hopefully come this fall they'll be ready to eat. I'm not real sure on that, and it's starting to sprinkle on me. And there's some Gerber daisies, some lilies planted off in there, and then of course the cannas right there behind it. So we're going to go ahead and go in the garden. Hopefully it won't sprinkle too hard on us. And before we go in, these are my cucumber vines. I have them in grow boxes, and the grow boxes have served pretty well. They help keep the soil moist, and just with the Texas heat, the cucumber vine is starting to die out. So there's a few cucumbers that you can see on there, but they're not going to fill out like they did in early spring. The heat's just too much for them. And over here I have a couple tomato plants that are still growing. And on this side of the archway trellis, as you can see, I have some tomato plants. They're Amish paste tomato plants growing there. And I've got some white grape vines growing there. And the tomato plants serve the purpose of shade as well as production. And then of course I think I have a Amish paste and a mortgage lifter in there. So we'll go ahead and go in. And I made this box out of pallets and scrap wood. Hold on just a second. Okay, moving into the garden, right here next to the entryway garden box, I have an ambrosia apple tree in this blue pot. And we will look around and take a little tour of my vegetable garden. It is a work in progress. We are learning as we grow. And in this area I decided to go with raised beds because this area was very wet, very marshy, and I needed to be able to control the soil by adding compost. So this is one of the beds that I made. And in this bed last year, I had tomato plants in it. And the tomato plants, as you know, are heavy feeders. So I decided this year I would add chicken manure compost to it. And I planted some corn on the cob. And these corn on the cobs did extremely well. We have so far gotten 6 ears of corn off of it. And they were very well pollinated and very good. They're supposed to be sweet corn, but they're not sweet, but they are delicious. We do not use any pesticides or any chemicals to grow in our garden. Now the timber that I use, or the lumber I use to build these garden boxes, this box is treated wood, but supposedly the way they treat wood nowadays, the chemicals that they use do not leach into the soil. And we've had some good luck growing out of these boxes. Now what you see here is I took off a couple of inches of the top layer of soil and compost, and I mixed it elsewhere and added fresh compost to it. But this is compost straight out of the compost bins that we have. I mixed it in and topped it off for the corn. And hopefully it'll continue to break down, and as it does I'll add more compost to it, and hopefully by next spring the soil in this box will be revived. Alright, over here I've got some potted plants still. I've got, I believe that is an guava plant right there in the front. Then I have right behind it on the left hand side, I have a lemon or lime tree growing, and behind that a jalapeno bush or plant. And right here in front in this light tan barrel pot I have a lime tree. Behind it I have a pineapple guava, and then behind that over there in the corner, you can barely see it touching the fence rail, is a loquat tree. Moving around that, right here is another mulberry tree, and as you can see it's not near as big as the one that is planted in the tree ring, and I received both of those in the mail at the same time, planted them at the same time. But the one in the tree ring seems to really like the compost and that area for growing. So once I get this one planted, and I will probably be taking this one out to our 30 acres and planting it there when we get moved out there. And then right here we have a fig tree, and that's one of the figs that I'm going to take out to the property. And then we have another elderberry bush for the property. There is nothing in that pot right there. Those are the two pots that I had our potatoes in. We did get a few potatoes out of them, which I was really impressed because we have never grown potatoes or had any luck. But they did turn out a little small, but I got enough potatoes to make a small pot of potatoes for one meal. Now, as we move back here, and of course this is another loofah that I planted on the fence rail, and hopefully it'll start producing. Oh, looks like we've got some sort of flowers going on right there, so hopefully those will start producing some loofahs. Okay, and then back here in this area is my blackberry bush, one of them. This is a thornless blackberry bush, and it produces blackberries, as you can see, the size of my thumb pretty much. See the size on this blackberry? That's pretty good size for a blackberry bush. The ones we have on our property that are wild blackberries aren't this big. And of course Copper likes to come out here and pick them himself and help himself. But out of this blackberry bush and the one we have over here in the corner, just opposite, out of these two blackberry bushes we've gotten about 3.5 to 4 gallons of blackberries. So we've done pretty good this year. This is the first real big harvest that we've had. Now in this box, this is a 8-foot box. Let me back up here. There are two boxes here. One here in front and one in the back. Both these boxes are the same dimensions. They're 8 feet long by 4 feet deep. And I filled them with compost and rabbit gold, which is rabbit manure, in case you didn't already know. And I filled them with that, and then I needed a temporary trellis, and I just kind of threw something up. It's welded wire and a couple 2x4s on the back side of the box. I thought maybe the cucumber vine would grow up it and over it and not fill up the bed. Boy, was I wrong on that. And I planted a tomato plant or two on the right hand side of that back box. And I have a Star of David and some nostrums in that box. I'm not really happy with that trellis. I think next year, as you can see, this box, I have some watermelon in it. I think next year what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a trellis or cattle panel down the center of both of these. And I haven't really decided if I want to do an arch between the two, run the cattle panels in the middle and arch it to the one behind it, and plant on both sides of the arches, or just run straight cattle panels down the middle of both these boxes separately and just go ahead and plant both of them. But I don't feel like I'm getting as much use out of the boxes. I'm getting a lot of use, but I think I can get more out of these boxes if I have a cattle panel down the center of some sort. So that's my goal for this upcoming spring, fall time. I have watermelon that I transplanted in this box up front. I had them planted by some trees. They weren't doing so well. And believe it or not, these starts that you see here are the same size they were in the spring when I planted them. They have not grown until I moved them to this box, and they actually started turning dark green. I don't know what's going on with them. Hopefully they'll start growing the more I water them, and hopefully by fall time we might get some watermelons. But we'll see. If not, there's always next year. Okay, coming back here in this corner, in this back corner, there are 2 old tires that I turn into garden boxes basically. And the back one has our thornless blackberry, and it's doing really well. And the front one I didn't have anything to plant in it, so what I did was I went ahead and planted a tomato plant in it, and it's produced some tomatoes for us and it's done pretty good. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I'm going to let the tomato plant finish doing its thing, and we'll see if I use it again there or if I need to relocate it. I kind of like the location of that. I need to build a garden box here between this box and those tires, and I just planted some plum yellow tomatoes in here to see if they would grow in just the layered soil that I had built up, which is a layering of, it's kind of like a back to Eden gardening or lasagna layer gardening, because this area was so swampy and mushy. I layered out, there was grass, I layered out cardboard real thick, and then I started putting in the chicken mulch from the hen house, which is pine shavings, and of course the chicken manure in here to start layering it and building it up. And then of course in these 2 boxes right here, the one in the left I have onions planted in it, and I've just recently topped it off with with rabbit gold and some compost out of our garden box. And then the one next to it on the right that has my black-eyed Susies in it, I did the same. The one on the right, I don't have anything planted in it at this time. I plan on planting maybe carrots and spinach in it in the future, probably in the next month or so. So that'll be one of our fall crops. And there's Copper. He's sneaking back there to see if there's any blackberries on the blackberry bush for him. He likes to help himself when I leave the gate open. And of course, since I'm in here, I've got the gate open. There is my rosemary in a pot. Now this garden box is fairly long, and what I did was I took some pallets. I probably took about, let's see here, probably took me about 6 pallets worth of pallets, and I built this raised bed, and then I filled in the gaps with extra pallet wood, and on the ends I closed it in with scrap wood that we had laying around. Now on this end closest to us on the left hand side, I planted 1,500-year-old cave beans, and they did really well. We got about half a pint out of those. Then I planted some tomatoes in the middle, some Amish paste tomatoes, and some plum yellow tomatoes. I can honestly say I probably will not be planting plum yellow tomatoes again. I don't really care for them. They're great to eat by the handfuls or put in salads, but I like the big slicer size tomatoes that I can slice up and put on a good sandwich, or put in a salad, or make some tomato sauce out of, or what have you. I'm not real keen on the whole cherry tomatoes for our family, but they may serve purpose for other folks, but just not us. And then on the far end, down here, I planted some pinto beans, and we got a half a pint of pinto beans this year, which I've never planted the pinto beans or the cave beans, and I thought they turned out pretty good. I may be doing some more this fall, see if I can get some more in before our first frost. And then down there I've got a rosemary, and in this bed, this was the first bed I built out here. I planted tomato plants in it, and you know, we all know that tomato plants are heavy feeders. So this year I didn't get a chance to renew the soil or refresh it or add compost to it until just the other day, and I planted tomatoes in it. They've done pretty good. But after these tomatoes come out, I will have to definitely replenish it, stir it up. I really don't want to stir it up, but I need to mix it with what's in the bottom or towards the middle, and add lots more compost to this, so that next time I plant in this, if I do tomatoes or whatever, there's some nutrients in the soil for whatever plants. Then in these grow boxes, I have, on the far left, I have bell peppers. In the green bucket is bell peppers as well. This far right bucket is jalapenos, and there's a bucket in the back area with jalapenos as well. The reason I planted so many jalapenos is I wanted some decent salsa this year. And I'm still working on my recipe and making salsa, but you've got to have the produce to do so, so I decided to grow some. Alright, so here's the inside view of my trellis, and as you can tell, these tomatoes go all the way to the top and they come back down to the box. And of course there's copper in my garden. And I forgot to tell you, hold on, let me turn you around here. Hopefully I don't make you dizzy. In this box right here, I planted some corn on the cob. The corn on the cob in this box did not do as well as it did in the other box. Reason being, I'm guessing, is because I've heard that each kernel has to be pollinated by the wind or the bees or the insects. And that is done through the silk that comes out of the top of the corn. Well, this area apparently doesn't get very much wind, and the corn doesn't like it as well in this area as it does in the other box. So I probably won't be planting it here again, but I will be in the other box, since we did get 6 ears of corn off of it. Okay, so in this area, this big open area in my garden, I'm planning on either putting in some more boxes, like in the back there, and coming forward with at least 2 more boxes, or maybe putting in some 2 by 8 long boxes going lengthwise, but I'm not real sure on that yet. It'll probably be the bigger boxes. I'm leaning more towards that, so that there's more growing area, and it'll kind of fill in this area that is open. I just haven't gotten a chance or time to get around to doing that, but that's on the agenda. Hopefully sometime soon between now and winter time, so that I can start putting compost in it and getting that to break down and get it ready for next spring. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and that notification button so that you get notified next time a video comes out. And we'll try to keep you guys updated more frequently on how the garden's going. Like I said, I was going to show you the good, the bad, and the ugly of my garden, and this is where we're at right now. It is towards the end of July, and it is very hot. Today seems to be a little cooler day because we have scattered showers in the area, but we have been under a heat advisory and hitting triple digits for the past 2 to 3 weeks. So it's kind of a nice change when you're able to get outside and enjoy the day a little bit. And this is Copper and Shannon with Southern Gardening. And like I said, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button. If you got any comments, leave them down below, and I'll try to get to them as quickly as possible. We are learning as we grow. And have a great day.